Welcome everyone to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm blessed today. I have a dear friend joining us, Gerald Rogers. Welcome to the show, bro. It's amazing to welcome you here. We'll get into the depth of it, but first I just want to say thank you for being here, bro.
Yeah, it's always an honor. I love taking time to like just drop in and have soul conversations with soul brothers and see what magic evolves from that. So I'm excited to play with you.
Likewise, bro. So for those of you that don't know Gerald, we blessing of getting to know each other through Tony Robbins community, but really connecting deeper at Joe Dispenza's event, and then really just observing one another's journey throughout the experience. Gerald, also, if you want to share a little bit about your background and the depth of how you are involved in Burning Man, what you're doing in the world, and what really inspires you and motivates you to continue to go down this deeper path within yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think it's always interesting when someone asks, "Who are you?" or "What do you do?" or like why do you do what you do? I think that's like perhaps the most interesting question. So I've been facilitating, leading transformational workshops and seminars and retreats for 15 years. So just we take people on these epic adventures, really helping people rediscover their soul, helping people ignite new vision in their life, helping people clear through the limiting blocks and fears and beliefs that have kept them stuck, and really helping people optimize and activate their potential. So that's what I do. Um, and the reason why I do it is because I think like so many people, our mess is our message. For me, I remember, you know, 16 years ago being this real estate investor that really just wanted to become financially free and wanted to like build this business, but I noticed I just kept getting in my own way over and over and over again. And it became completely evident that it wasn't my lack of knowledge that was holding me back, but with some deep internal limiting beliefs or fears that were driving me. I had a fear of being seen. I had a fear of failing. I had a fear of, not looking good. I worked so hard on like protecting this like little masked image of myself in the world that I didn't even know who I was. And um, yeah, and fortunately through that journey, I just became introduced to some mentors that just like really radically changed my life. Tony Robbins being one of them, T.R. Becker being one, Jack Canfield, like all of these different mentors started coming into my life with messages that like felt like they ignited my soul. And there was something in me that knew that that's what I wanted to do. And when my real estate portfolio crashed in 2008 and I lost everything, I was kind of left wondering, it's like, okay, what is actually really important to me? If I could do anything, what would it be? And I just love the power of community. I love the power of tribe. I love the power of live events and seminars to like wake people up and move people. And so I kind of leaned into that as my path, and it's still what I love most. I love calling together a group of total strangers, bringing them into a room, and in 3 days, just having them completely radically see themselves in the world and each other differently. And in some ways, that's what led me to build Burning Man Camp, where we have 120 epic souls that are part of that, and yeah, just all of the work I do and the work I do around psychedelics and utilizing psychedelics as a way to accelerate people's transformation and healing. It's been a really aggressive learning path over the last 15 years. I would say that for anyone that has ever felt the call to be a mentor, you know that it's really a path of being a student and going through the hardest initiations in the world so that you can be qualified to lead. And I'm grateful where it's led me. Some of the moments on the path I wouldn't want anyone to ever experience, but for me, like I really recognize that those moments of deepest struggle have always been the moments where the greatest gifts have been unveiled. So it's a little
Beautiful,
about
brother.
how
I
I.
love it, and I really can resonate with a lot of the depth of the fear and the masks. And I know that experiencing these events of building tribe and connecting to ourselves ultimately is what really connected us as well. And it's interesting because, the more that we are able to unpack these layers, we can start to find like real true mirrors of our internal self. And so I'd love to go maybe a little bit deeper into that unpacking of the masks, because I do find that it's starting to become a little bit more aware of what the work is in terms of getting into ourselves, recognizing that these fears that have been illusions of our predecessors that have been passed on to us, we're starting to discover on a more mainstream experience that it's been a fallacy. And so what are you seeing, the more that you're spending time in tribes, the more that you're spending time with creating events, the more that you're building, the Burning Man community, and what are you seeing to be the common shift or the pattern that you're recognizing in terms of that implementation happening into everyday life now?
Well, I think what's present is that we are in a world of just incredible change and transition. We're in a world where um, technology is advancing faster than we can possibly imagine. We can't even comprehend what the present is, much less the future. Like we don't like can't even keep up with AI and the evolutions of biotechnology. I heard recently that the person that will live to be 1,000 years old has already been born. They're already on the earth. Like, what does that mean for us? What does it mean when AI has the ability to do creative things like art and music better than any human? What does it mean when all of these jobs that we've relied on, through humanity are becoming obsolete? What does it mean as a culture? What does it mean for us individually? And I think when people are confronted with experiences that challenge their sense of meaning in the world, it forces them to start asking questions. And the questions lead to the awakening. And this is why I think there's such a renaissance right now of people that are seeking for deeper healing, like modalities such as breath work or psychedelics or Joe Dispenza's meditation. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you just didn't hear about these things. 10 years ago, I had never heard of breath work. 10 years ago, I had never heard of cold water therapy, Wim Hof. 10 years ago, I had barely heard of ayahuasca 10 years ago, but now it feels like these are mainstream conversations that people are having. And with that, there's just like this acceptance of looking outside the box. And I think there's still obviously a large portion of our society that is still committed to keep putting their heads down and ignoring these things. There's a large portion of population that would discount it, but the science is so clear now, and the evidence is so obvious of how this is healing people at such a tremendous way, right? And so I think it's becoming harder and harder for people to ignore. And in that, there's more permission, I think, that people have right now to awaken, to think differently, to challenge how they see. Because we look at the world right now, and we look at, let's say, politics and the election that's coming up in the United States. And everyone universally thinks this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Like, how are these two idiots like our choices? Like there's no one in America that actually thinks either of them's a good choice. I can't say that, but no one that I know. Everyone thinks this is the biggest joke of humanity. Like, why are we forced to play this game? Like, we're confronted with these things. And whether it be like the experience of COVID or all these other things, it's just like the stupidity of the way that we've been doing life is just on the surface now, right? And it's causing us to like question, is like, okay, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way for us individually to heal, to find our purpose, that thrive. And there's got to be a better way culturally for us to actually create a society that we believe our children deserve.
Wow,
So
beautiful. I
there's,
love
there's
this.
a lot of rants that I went on there, but
No,
um,
it's not around. It's coming through, bro. And this transition that you really beautifully articulated for our next generation and the importance of bringing that together. How would you say that that actually, because we're so conditioned, like you said, people are being in this box, they're stuck in the box, they don't want to break out, right? This is what I would call a lot of the old paradigm of like really forcing oneself to really need to maybe prove oneself, or I knew I was there. Like I definitely felt in a place where I needed to prove myself in the world for a very long time. And I know that these types of fears, still exist. But what I'm hearing is that we're taking it upon ourselves to break those patterns and transition to a new paradigm of energy of being versus doing, and allow our children and our next generation to really start to cultivate a meaningful existence where there is more depth, more frequency, more energy, more vibration focused on the element of creating from a space of desire, of devotion, of certainty within oneself. So how can somebody that is really stuck in this box, from your perspective, because I know you're spending a lot of time helping people break through like this, is what first, before they go into psychedelia, or even they're getting just curious about the breakthrough, how can they break free from this box for themselves so that they can start to bring this new state of awareness where they can transition into that scientific experience that Joe Dispenza talks about, or that spiritual experience that Eckhart Tolle can talk about, or spending time with the shamans, in Brazil, they can talk about down the line. But what are your approaches in terms of, would it be breath work? Would it be cold plunging? Would it be spending more time in these to get outside of the box first and then go deeper into the psychedelia? How would you help people that are listening right now really transition?
yeah, I don't believe that there's one path for everyone. There's not one set formula
Yeah.
for the awakening journey or the unlocking journey, or it'd be ridiculous to say that this is the way to do it, because everyone's path is different.
I
But what
love
I
that, and
think,
I really that, brother, because that's beautiful to hear coming from another friend that I admire and appreciate. Because so many people in the past, have taken that saying of, "Hey, it needs to be this way," So, I love you for, and I appreciate you for saying that out loud.
yeah, because I mean, whether someone's first calling is to go to Dr. Joe, advanced retreat, or read a Tony Robbins book, or drop in with ayahuasca. Like, I don't know what that entry point is of what's going to call someone. But I think what is important is like beginning to surround yourself with people who do life different, right? Because I think it all begins with a shift in paradigm. Like when we're running the program of our life, let's just say we're like life, like our brains are like a computer. We have a set way that we were taught that the world should be. And these are like programs that were installed in our system and in our operating system when we were young. We saw the way our parents did things. We saw the way they interacted. We saw the way they did relationships. We saw the way they did money. We went through the school system. We were taught to sit down, shut up, fold our arms, be quiet, and like, here's what you need to know to get a good job. And like we were programmed. Our operating system, our computer was programmed by our parents, by our teachers, by our school systems, by our churches. And we even inherited some of these programs epigenetically from our grandparents and our ancestors before them. So before the time we were age 8, we had a set way of viewing and experiencing ourselves in relation to the world. And that's how we operate and navigate our life. We're either, thrive in relationships because we're given that program, or we struggle in relationships. But the vast majority of people I talk to, they didn't grow up with models of parents that were thriving, connected, and in a conscious, loving, divine masculine and divine feminine role, right? That was like healthy and balanced and energized and sexual and intimate and like connected. Like most parents, like hardly anyone I know grew up with that program of seeing conscious masculine and conscious feminine interacting in a healthy way in their own. I know hardly anyone that grew up in an environment where healthy ways of viewing money and abundance and prosperity were modeled for them. Most people I know grew up in patterns of scarcity and fear and like resistance and greed or whatever it might be. Like they grew up with ineffective patterns. They grew up in ineffective belief patterns about themselves and took on the beliefs or programs that says I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough or I can't have what I want. No matter how hard I try, I'll never be enough. And so people have all these broken programs or these outdated software that they're trying to operate life with. And they have all these viruses that are causing all this broken relationships or disconnection or scarcity patterns. And what I think is important is recognizing that unless we get a new paradigm, unless we find new programs, we'll keep creating that shit over and over and over and over again. But the moment you start hanging out with people that are thriving in relationships, they're deeply connected, they have a good balance of masculinity and femininity. The moment you see that, it's like, oh shit, that's possible. I want those programs. The moment you start hanging out with people that are confident and embodied and like really tuned in and living their purpose, you're like, what? I want that program. The moment you see people that are present and connected and tapped into source energy and vibrantly spiritually alive, you're like, oh my gosh, I want that program. And you see people that are, making a huge difference in the world. And so I think it's really important to begin surrounding yourself with different paradigms because those people have different codes. Those codes are what help us reprogram our own personal identity. And it's our identity that then creates the results in our life. And so the place to begin is just get in new environments, start meeting new people, start reading different books, start listening to different podcasts, listen to Eric Balance and the Resilient Mind. That will be an amazing place to start your journey because you just get exposed to interesting minds talking about powerful stuff and learning these different codes of creation. And then all of a sudden, you start to question, right? It's the questioning that creates the space for transformation to exist. The question is like the moment you notice yourself getting angry or triggered when something happens in a relationship, it's like, oh shit, like where's this program actually coming from? Is this what I want? And then in the questioning, there creates space for a new code to be upgraded in your system. And then just follow the breadcrumbs. Like the universe somehow leaves these perfect breadcrumbs. It's like, oh my gosh, how did I end up here at this Joe Dispenza retreat? How did I end up here, hanging out with Eric Balance? How did I end up here, at a ayahuasca retreat? And all of a sudden, your life unfolds in all these magical ways just from questioning, following the breadcrumbs, and just like, just acting on it. And I really believe that the universe has a much grander plan than we could possibly have for ourselves.
So beautiful. And bro, this like breadcrumb and this nomadic type of like trusting of in certainty and that confidence, this is like what we did 10,000 BC, 15,000 BC. This was like a normal way of being. Very, very nomadic, very experiential, very trusting in what came. And it's interesting because this is coming full circle now. It's coming, these patterns are starting to now replicate because we're taking the time to go that deep inside of ourselves. And so I love hearing that you're bringing, this responsibility into into the way that we get to step up as a society. It's such an important role and responsibility for us all. And I find that the more that we've discovered this curiosity, of being curious of one another, it gives us the capacity to then learn. Because, like you said, we're getting to exchange. Like, I get to learn from you in this present moment because of the wisdom that you're creating from your experience. And I find that the more that this gives us uh, that knowing that we don't know,
Yeah.
we open up to the possibilities of really cultivating something even more meaningful. And so, brother, I really appreciate this insight. It's very meaningful to me, and I know for anybody that's listening. When do you find with the work now, what got you to get into being in service alongside psychedelia, and how does that now work into what you're integrating with your workshops and the people that you're working with?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been a student of the mind and transformation for 15 years. I studied, hypnosis, NLP, all these different technologies for accelerating change in people's lives. And it's powerful, right? I love what NLP can do. I love what, the modalities of meditation and all these other things can do. And about 10 years ago, I was invited to go experience ayahuasca for the first time. And I went down to Colombia and sat with Mother Aya, and it so radically changed the way I saw myself in the world. Like so radically, like shifted my experience of life. And it did things that, 10 years of traditional transformational workshops and seminars couldn't do. Like it healed parts of me and it awakened other parts of me that I hadn't known how to like work with. And so over the last 10 years, I began exploring psilocybin or MDMA or, ketamine and all these different other, psychoactive substances. And what I've noticed as we've integrated into the work that we do in retreats is it creates a level of neuroplasticity in people's brains and creates a new level of possibility that, for some people, it can be like 3 years worth of, therapy or transformation all in one single session, right? And so it became impossible for me to ignore the potency of it and the importance of it. And also like really question is like, okay, it's interesting, like seeing how powerful this is in both healing people from trauma and helping people overcome like deep-seated challenges or fears or limiting beliefs that they've had, knowing the power that it has to connect community and to open up our hearts and really like bond people in a meaningful way. Like, why the hell was this illegal for so long? Why is it still illegal? Like, it's such an interesting question. Why would the government feel the need to make mushrooms, which grow from the earth and which cultures have been using for thousands of years for sacred and spiritual purposes, why would they make that illegal? Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I mean, I think that there's probably a lot to that, but I think at the end of the day, like what happens when we take these substances, it just liberates our mind from old ways of thinking. And it makes sense why churches and governments would fear that, right? It would make sense why there would be like this fear around people being too liberated, especially, back when the war on drugs began, with Richard Nixon and all these people taking LSD are like, why are we going to Vietnam? Like this just doesn't make sense. This is stupid. I don't want to go there. Why would I go fight these people on this war that I don't believe in? And I can imagine that they, you know, they felt threatened because they couldn't control these people anymore. So that's my personal like philosophy of where that all began. But it's really interesting that now, there's so much science to back the validity of the power of it and also the safety when done correctly, right? And so for me, like my work right now is culling together people that are leaders in the psychedelic space so that we can support each other in bringing the healing power of these medicines to the world in a way that's safe and educated and intentional. And so I do this in my own retreats. So when someone comes on our retreats, we typically will do two different ceremonies as part of the experience. But beyond that, we're building this mastermind, this alliance of people that are really feeling called, whether they're called to build a retreat center and like want to steward this medicine at the retreat centers, or if they're facilitators of retreats or one-on-one therapy. Like I really feel like this is so much of what is required to forge a new pathway for our future. So yeah, I'm such a firm advocate of it.
Bro, I really want to go deeper into with the healing trauma, and the reason why is because for me personally, my older sister, she has been diagnosed deeper into like long time ago into bipolar, but she really now is in these stories of herself, consistently. She's smoking a lot, she's unhealthy, and I personally spent a lot of time with her since I've been back home. My parents, like really wanting to support her, and it's really it's challenging, in a way that she's stuck in the story of what she needs to do. She got the COVID shots. She did. She's been just really uh disconnected, and she chooses to tell herself that she's sick, chooses to tell herself that there's something wrong with her, chooses to make those distinctions. And so I imagine that there might be people that either have family, or they either have their own choices of decisions that they're not fully aware of, that are listening to this. And I would love some of your insight of like what do you feel, that someone like my sister, that is committed to telling herself how sick she is, or how traumatic she is, that that she's bipolar, that she's sick, that she needs, all these pills, that she needs all these other medicines that have been limiting her for such a long period of time. I'm curious to know, would this type of like treatment, going and spending time, with you guys at your next retreats, or what does this look like for someone like my sister, that, by the way, like, I mean, my journey. I've been on it for quite some time. So she's observed and watched and still, chooses not to. But I'd like to encourage with that loving awareness, because I feel like I'm too close to it. I feel like I'm in that place where I'm too attached to wanting to serve and support her, and really needing to bring a different voice of reason, uh, that is important, that it will help pass in some way, shape, or form her ability to liberate, because she's brilliant, she's loving, she spent so much amazing time. Like, as I was growing old, like up, she took such good care of me. So there, I know that essence of her is there, right? And you can see it, I can see it, like, and when she just changes that moment and makes that distinction of, hey, I'm going to choose to be a victim right now, I can observe it, literally the shift. However, obviously, it's not something that I can force, right? So just wanted to
Yeah,
get some insights, brother.
I really appreciate that. And that's, I think, an important acknowledgement, recognizing that each person has their own path and their own timeline. And there's a couple things I want to share with it. Number one, like like a kind of a deeper spiritual truth for us when we're observing someone that we love going through challenges. And then second, what that path looks like when they choose that they're ready, for that growth. But I think the first truth, which I think is important, is like we all have these people in our life, that we see their blocks, we see their fears, we see their ineffective programs, we see the ways that they're stuck, we see the ways that they're in self-sabotage, we see the ways that they're in essence destroying their life, right? Like we can see it because of our viewpoint. The challenge is when we focus on the problem or block inside of them, when we focus on the problem, when we project that they have a problem, it's almost like we put more energy into their brokenness. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like we perceive them as broken, and therefore it like our energy keeps them in the broken loop a little bit, right? Versus when we can like really see each person as a whole and complete sovereign being. For us to be able to say, oh my gosh, I see this person and the suffering they're creating, and they have every right to create that suffering in their life. They have every right to be exactly where they're at. And I may give them invitations. My example may help them see a different personality, but I'm not going to put the energy into them that they're broken or something's wrong with them, because I honor and love and celebrate their sovereignty. And I think that's that's the most important thing we can do as loved ones to empower someone, is to not project brokenness on them. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this is such an important like distinction. And it's interesting because genuinely she'll say, oh, something's wrong with me, or this and that. Like, Joanne, there's nothing wrong. You're amazing. Like, or I'll see the love and energy that I want to put into that beauty of it in that
Yeah.
moment. And it's like this constant flip back where I notice
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
she's making that distinction that something is wrong with her. And
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
right. It's
And-
like what you just said is literally she's doing the part herself of something
yeah.
broken in
Which
her,
is,
and I'm the part that's jumping on the empowering part, like
yeah,
it's
which is which is perfect. And once again, I'm not even speaking into your situation directly, but I think that's really important for those of us that want to see healing happen in others. There's a phenomenal book. If you haven't read it, read Zero Limits by Joe Vitale. Like it will change your life in terms of how you perceive the challenges you witness in people around you. And I'll just give you a little seed. So the whole book is about this Hawaiian healing practice called Ho'oponopono. And what is really interesting, the profound part of this book that kind of like shook me, because I'm all about radical, you know, radical responsibility and taking ownership for your results and stuff. But it took it to a whole new level. And what it says is if you witness a problem or challenge in someone around you, then that problem actually exists within you. And it created this like really interesting space. And the story that goes along with this miraculous book is this Hawaiian doctor was assigned to work at this psychiatric facility in Hawaii. And at this psychiatric facility at this hospital, there was a wing where all of these people had like really severe mental disabilities. Like they were non-functioning adults. Like they really had like severe, the most severe mental disorders. And this doctor, this Hawaiian doctor was hired to work there. And within 6 months, according to like what I remember from the story, everyone in that entire wing was healed to the point where they just had to close it down because there was no more people there. And he didn't meet with them once. He never met with them. He would just go to their files, find where it was within him that the dis-ease existed, and he would meditate saying, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And he would find the wholeness within him that was that other person. Anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent, but like this is like the gift that we can offer when we witness problems inside of other people. It's just like find the belief, the certainty of their wholeness. Now, from a more practical way, when someone is ready to change, they are asking for support. They are saying, oh my gosh, I know that I want something different. How do I do this? It can only happen from someone's sovereign choice that they're ready to change. It can't happen from this forced energy of like, hey, you really need to go do this, right? Someone has to choose it for themselves because at the end of the day, we are our own healers. We are our own healers. Your sister is her own healer, and in that space, it needs to be her that understands that it's her responsibility, that she's the one creating this situation she lives in. And she also, therefore, has the capacity to heal it, even if it is asking for help. And once again, people's path to that healing is different, but it comes from a space of ownership and accountability. It's like, hey, this is my life. I'm the one that's generating the results because we have to escape a form of victimhood. We have to escape this idea that life is happening to us or these problems are coming from outside of us, because as long as we believe that the source of the problem is outside of us, then the solution is outside of us as well. And we are powerless to change. And so for us to be able to say, oh gosh, okay, I recognize that I'm the one creating this problem. I'm the one at the source. Like this is coming from me. It's not because of my parents, not because of my body. It's not because of some disease I inherited. It's just like that problem exists inside of me. Therefore, I know the solution does too. Then from that space, then the openness allows for whatever healing modality is meant to happen. And sometimes it's a test, sometimes it's trying out different things and seeing what happens. I was actually on a conversation earlier today with this guy who was a Navy SEAL. He had spent, you know, I don't know, I can't remember how many years, 15, 20 years as a Navy SEAL, like in heavy combat and all these different situations. And 2017, when he got out, he was just like so much trauma from all the explosions and all the hostile situations and all the death that he witnessed. Like the PTSD was like really severe. And his path, he found this doctor who uses iboga as a tool for helping people like overcome, severe PTSD. And like as I was having this conversation with him, it's like after he found the healing that he needed, he's like dedicated his life. And together with this doctor, they've helped over 1,000 vets, heal from PTSD for using iboga. But for him, he's like, if it wasn't for that medicine, he would have killed himself. He would have like, he has a wife and he has kids and he has like this, life that he cherishes now. But at that time, he didn't know how to cope with life, right? But there was something in the medicine and the ceremonies and the experiences that created enough neuroplasticity where within some of these substances, it's actually neuroregenerative, right? Where it can actually heal these parts of the brain which have been damaged, right? And so there's been cases of people that have had bipolar or multiple personalities or, severe PTSD or other mental disorders that, have healed and have, found new possibilities in their life. And it's different substances in different settings, and so I think when someone finds themselves in that space, it's just beginning to explore and like really search and just trust there is a solution out there. And I think that trust, that willingness to start thinking differently, because like once someone goes on that path, and even like, once again, someone that's in your situation of your sister who's just gotten some really unhealthy thinking patterns, right? She just has programs that keep recycling the problems in her life. Because one of the things I always say is this, is that every word we speak and every thought we think is a seed for creating our future reality. Every word we speak and every thought we think is a seed for creating our future realities. We are literally our own fortune tellers. So if we're always complaining about being sick, we'll always be sick. If we're always complaining about being poor, We'll always be poor. We become the fortune tellers of our own life. But the moment someone understands this and it clicks in, they realize it, then it's like, oh, I need to have more stewardship and responsibility over my words. I need to actually start speaking into my future the words of what I actually want to create, which is, for example, one of the reasons for me, you'll never, ever, 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 ever hear me say I'm sick. I just will never say that. Those words, unless I'm giving an example like this, will never come out of my mouth because I just don't believe in it. I don't believe that that's what I want. I don't believe that's what I desire to create. I don't want to call that in. And so if I am ever experiencing symptom, and literally like in 15 years, there's been one day that I've had to not work because my body was like having symptoms, like one day in 15 years. Like I put zero energy into COVID because like I was like, that's bullshit. Like, why would I program myself to even believe that was a possibility for myself? Right. But if I ever do experience an itchy throat or a fever, I would simply speak the words like, wow, my body's so amazing. I'm actively healing right now. Those are the words that I would use to call in what I want. And it's the absolute truth. A fever is nothing more than your body working perfectly and completely for your wholeness and well-being. You're not sick. You're actually perfectly whole. And that's what your body's doing. It's operating in wholeness. So why speak sickness? But I think that's the same with everything. It's like being intentional with our use of words and then finding the tools, whether it be coaching or mentoring or therapy or, psychoactive substances or, retreats or meditation, finding the tools that really support what you're calling in, what you want to create. But it can only begin for your sister, for instance, when she actually sees and believes there's another possibility and she wants it bad enough that she's willing to choose it. And until then, we
I,
just,
I love the sickness wholeness part. It's so true. The words are such power, and it really allows us to bring it into life, bro. So I just want to thank you for that, the sickness wholeness part. It's really important. And I I definitely resonate with just this part of being healthy. Like it's beautiful to know when we can heal ourselves and just trust in that capacity to do that, and then just move with that level of intention in the world. It's interesting to see more of us being willing to speak into existence our reality. And I appreciate your insight in terms of Joanne. Uh, I'm excited because I do believe that there's a breakthrough coming in every way, shape, and form. And her wholeness is already who she is, and it's just whatever she decides to do. I trust in the experience.
yeah, and I love that. And often for whatever in our soul path, sometimes it requires us to break down, it requires us to come to a space where nothing else is working for us to be like, huh, I've got to figure out something else, right? And then sometimes it comes in the form of a gift of a brother that says, hey, I believe in you. Hey, this book might be supportive to you. You might check this out. Hey, listen to this. Listen to this. I thought of you, and I think it'd be like, sometimes it comes from the gift of an invitation from someone else that's that, or sometimes it's that pure frustration that forces us to start challenging the way we think and finding something different. So yeah, I really have learned I've really learned in this to not judge someone else's path because um somehow in some strange bizarre infinite cosmic wisdom everyone's path is exactly what it's meant to be for them. And I've learned to trust in that more and more, even though my perception is they should be doing something different than they are, you know. But,
I agree.
but somehow
It's
everyone
beautiful.
has sovereign.
It's beautiful to surrender to that, bro. I'm every day learning more and more about surrendering and surrendering and surrendering and letting go and letting go and letting go. And I don't think that I will uh learn all of that's necessary or all that I believe from that small mind of mine compared to the experience of life uh till the next, lifetimes. So, bro, I'd love to get curious too with regards to these experiences in terms of the retreats and the events that you hold. Is this, things that you do for businesses or anybody can come join, or do you go and work with businesses specifically? How have you been able to integrate that into, business behavior, or is that something that you think would be a value for anybody that wants to bring this into their culture and inside of business experiences? Because I personally believe that empowering organizations like this with what you're cultivating with your events is a superpower and something that can really transform the infrastructure of what a great organization and a culture within that organization can look like. So take us through that if you don't mind, bro.
Yeah, so I don't work with companies per se, but I work with what I call growth-oriented entrepreneurs, right? Just people that are like they're creators, they're leaders. They love seeing a different way. They love, finding the path. They love exploring their own potential so they can show up as better leaders and better creators. And so those are the people that typically will come to our retreats. And those retreats are designed to be, yeah, just personal breakthrough experiences where people can let go of old baggage that no longer serves, let go of old codes and old programs, and really step into having heightened clarity of who they are and what they're all about, of feeling inside themselves the embodied experience of deeper confidence and trust, being able to like feel more than just financial success, but what fulfillment actually feels like, right? That's what we're really great. We work with a lot of people that have achieved a lot of success, but they've been missing out on the fulfillment. They've been missing out on the joy and the vibrancy and the connection and the magic of life. And we're really good at helping them tune back into that magic. And so yeah, that's what I would say who I normally work with are growth-oriented entrepreneurs that just they just want more. We don't do deep therapeutic, uh, work in our personal retreats in terms of people that are like working through PTSD or severe mental, like sicknesses and stuff. There's plenty of other facilitators and leaders that focus on that. Ours are for people that have just done a lot of work and they're just like ready for the next level and they just want to open up their heart a little bit more. They want to open up their mind a little bit more and they want to know how they can show up more powerfully as the creators of their life.
Cool. So if anyone is a creator or a leader, has an organization, and maybe wants to bring their team or wants to get to know more about how they can work with you, or if there's any upcoming events, what is the best way to connect with you and find out more information, brother?
Yeah, I would say just connect with me mostly on Facebook is my primary place, but it's the real Gerald Rogers. So facebook.com/, the real Gerald Rogers. Or actually, you could go to gerald360.com. That's actually probably the easiest way. If you go to gerald360.com, you'll see some videos, you'll see some things about me. And if it really calls, someone really wants to step in, there's a connect button where you can actually set up a time on my calendar and we can hop on and have like a personal conversation for someone that wants to really explore whether coming on a retreat or doing some deeper work or attending one of our events.
Sweet, amazing. Brother, I am excited and grateful to really like take or learn from you, take a lot of notes and learn from you because I believe that it's important what you're doing in so many ways inside of businesses as well. I personally do. I personally think that these growth-oriented entrepreneurs that you're working with are going to really bring their dynamic into organizational fulfillment. Um, but I wanted to ask one last question. So if you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
Yeah, that's easy. I would actually get my favorite people in the world together and we'd drop in and do ceremony together. And drop in with some MDMA and some psilocybin. We just open up our hearts and just love each other, and just create like a really magical experience. And that's what I would do. Yeah. It's pretty simple. Like I feel like yeah, maybe I would like record some messages. I'd probably record a video to be shared at my eulogy. I'd probably do that because I want to be a speaker at my own funeral.
I love.
But beyond that, like feel like I feel like at the end of the day, the most important thing is just making the loved ones we know that they're loved, the end of the day, that I feel like is our most important job, is just making sure we feel complete, and making sure those around us really fully appreciate how much we care about them.
Everything, bro. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your presence, bro. It's really nice to watching you shine, and I can feel, a lot of grace coming through you, bro. It's really it's nice to see and listen.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks for the invitation. Thanks for creating and just continuing to show up as a powerful voice in the world. All right. Thank you.